So
this feels weird. I'm not used to being this side.
I'm sorry.
You're
sorry.
fine. You're good.
It does feel weird when you're on the wrong side, doesn't it?
It's like what? Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to a brand new podcast today in James's studio. Today I'm going to be with Maddie, talking about her new book, talking about neurodiversity, money, etc. Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
It's good, isn't it?
The second time on your podcast.
I know.
Love it.
And you also, while I was setting up, you reminded me that it's been a year since we last
It's
spoke.
been
And
a
that's
year.
nuts. That is
We
absolutely...
have spoken a little bit in between then. It's
Yes,
not like
but
I've totally ignored you.
Hey, people are busy. It's all good. For people who don't know,
Yes.
what do you do?
So I like to call myself a multi-potentialite. So for people who don't...
That's a sentence.
It is, yeah. For people who don't know what that means, it means that I am a jack of all trades, and instead of being master of none, I'm actually quite good at some of them. So I am an ADHD money and business coach. I am a visibility strategist. I'm a speaker. I am a app owner. I'm a wellbeing platform owner. I also am an author of a Amazon best-selling #1 book, Mad About Money. I think that is about it. Oh, mum as well, dog owner, crazy
Wonderful.
person.
Wonderful.
I'm a neurodivergent with every single neurodivergent presentation that there possibly could be available.
It's funny, right? I did a podcast yesterday, and the crux of the conversation afterwards, we ended up talking for an hour afterwards. Cheers, Johnny. Appreciate the conversation. Was basically like everyone's like, oh, you need to niche, right? I wasn't actually going to start here, but as you mentioned it, we'll start here, right?
It's my favourite topic.
Why do we not? Because I've always been in the world of like, I could niche, but I don't want to.
Yep, that's exactly
Right?
where I am.
Like I could make probably a lot more money if I did, maybe, right? Arguably that's what everyone who's into niching will tell me. But for me, I'm like, yeah, but tell that to wedding videographers during COVID, for example. Right?
Yes, exactly.
How'd that work out?
I'm a big fan of like not putting all your eggs in one basket, but also as a neurodivergent, I need to make sure that my brain is entertained. And if I have to stick and do one thing, I'd get really fucking bored all the time. So I do things in a variety of ways. So the way I describe my business to people is I have an A side and a B side. Like think about like cassette tapes, owning your soundtrack. When you are a cassette tape, you have a side and you have another side and you can flip it. So that's basically what I do. I talk about business on one hand and money on the other hand. And in the middle of that, there is also things like well-being, life. Obviously, the neurodiversity stuff is quite big for me. I'm a qualified neurodiversity specialist. And I don't niche by the things I do. I niche by my values. I niche by the things that I talk about. So I talk about basically 4 different things when it comes to my content pillars. I talk about neurodiversity. I talk about life. I talk about money. I talk about business. And it just so happens that I'm also really bloody good at TikTok, social media, all of those kind of things. But they all do fall under the business arm. So, I'm a qualified business strategist. I've been a business mentor coach. I hate the word coach, really. It's more, I do more mentoring. Like, I don't do that whole, like, how does that make you feel type of, like, coachy thing. I do the, this is your strategy. This is how you do it. Let's talk about ways that we can grow your business, and let's talk about how to get you a plan to grow your business. So it's not your traditional coach. It's kind of more like sounding board, let's throw stuff around and help you to grow type of situation.
I think there's so much I could go there, but I'll start. I mean, let me ask you this like a very selfishly personal question.
Okay.
Because I'm a dyslexic.
Yes.
Is that why I don't want a niche? Because I think there'll be people watching this who maybe are on the neurodivergent scale.
Yes.
Who are like, I don't get it. Because I can do multiple things. I can spin multiple plates, but like doing one thing consistently, I can't think of anything worse.
So dyslexics need to have their brain stimulated, and doing one thing does not stimulate your brain. So it's the same for most neurodivergent presentations. We will want to do things that keep us alive. It's why we do the things that are very much interest-based.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, do you want to be an accountant? You'd probably go, fuck no, that sounds super boring. Like, if you said to me, like, do you want to be a videographer? I'd be like, no, because I do not know how to do that. But if I like being a business coach because it gives me the variety of people. So I get the variety of like working with people who have all got like ridiculously different businesses. And most of them are also multi-potentialites. You know, they do lots of different things because they want their brains to be stimulated. So by working with lots of different people who all do different things, who also do different things within their things, I am just constantly like, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like, if there's ever a day where I turn up to work and go, oh God, this is ridiculously boring, I think I'm in the wrong job. But I, every single day, love what I do.
I think it's so easy for us to sit here and go, oh, well, we love what we do, etc. Right? Because there's that A-Dodge analogy of you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But it's
I work really hard.
But that's what I was going to say. I mean, I think it's one of those things where when you say that, I can tell you haven't done it.
Yes.
Because like the whole bouncing around things and like spinning multiple plates and coming up with new ideas drives my partner mad because I'm constantly coming up, I've got this thing, I've got this thing, I've got this idea, oh, what about this, oh, what about this? But that's one of the reasons why I would argue I'm going to be a really good entrepreneur. Yes. Because I can constantly adapt. I'm switching from finance head to marketing head to sales head to client delivery head to now doing a podcast, etc., etc.
Exactly. It's nice when you get to do when you get to kind of like build that team and get rid of the things that you don't enjoy as much. So like for me, admin, funnels, anything that is process driven, literally makes me want to die. Sales, marketing, talking, podcasting, video creation, not in front of the camera rather than behind it, because God no, I would not want to be the other side. But for me, it's all about the people facing, and I love going networking, and I like going to events as long as they're not too big. But that gives me all of the variety, but also it means that I can outsource the things I don't like doing as well.
Yeah. Do you think there's a stage with outsourcing? Because like I've been very open in my content and in marketing. Like 2024, I overspent. I nearly lost the business twice.
Oof,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm now in a position which is kind of not the opposite, because it's weird to say that, but it's like I'm in a stronger position, but I'm actually doing absolutely everything myself again.
Yes. So I do most things myself. I've got a couple of virtual assistants who are absolutely amazing. Shout out to Kira and Naomi. They're amazing. But yeah, I think one of the things that I did super early on in my business, so like even with my previous business, was that I outsourced the things that I don't enjoy doing first. Yep. Because if you have to do all of those boring tasks, they never get done. And actually, they're quite important tasks, like scheduling emails, paying your invoices, like creating invoices. If I didn't have somebody creating my invoices, I would never make any more. I'd never make any money. And I've just been in a little handover with my 2 virtual assistants. And I realised that I haven't invoiced for like 4 months, and I'm like, oh, I thought my cash flow was a bit down, but it's because I don't have the executive function to actually do that piece of the business. So it's not that I don't think it's important. It's just that my brain goes, no, you don't like me, so I'm not gonna be a friend.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's it's not even bored? I think it's because I was going to link this into TikTok because I know that's a lot of what you do and a lot of what you teach, and so it'd be wrong of me not to talk about it, but. Do you think there's a level of people who are concerned about being on video? They're concerned about doing marketing,
absolutely,
especially if they don't know what they're doing, because they're like, what if someone? It's not, from my experience at least. It's what if X person thinks I'm a dick? What if they think da.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of confidence building that goes on in the background with that, especially when people are new in business, because showing up and doing videos, like you're going to get your friends judging, you're going to get your parents judging, like why are you doing this, why don't you go get a proper job? Like I see it all the time, and it's a case of just being like, do you know what, this is my business, nobody else has a say in how I make my money.
I don't even think it's just your business, I think it's your life.
It is
one of the things that I remember very early in my entrepreneurial career was entrepreneurship is a lifestyle, not a business. Ooh. Right? It's not, because to me, I have new ideas. like, again, much to my partner's annoyance at times,
Yeah.
I will be working at night. Like, I was answering text messages and emails at 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
Right? But also,
I used to do that.
you know, I have the freedom to actually choose when I work. So it's not like
Yes.
I'm like, I have to do that every day. There'll also be periods in the week or periods in the month where I don't do that.
Yes.
But when it's push and when there's a lot going on, like today, for example, I was editing all of this morning on some client delivery stuff. Then I came here to do this. And then after this, I'm going to go back and finish client delivery again.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a lot of stuff going on, but actually I'm aware that I can do that and I know it's at my pace. And someone who's maybe looking in on it will go, well, that's that's a lot, Colin.
Yeah.
How do we change our pace? How do we, for us? Not for Colin, not for Maddie.
No.
For someone listening to this, how do they make sure they know what their pace is?
So I would say you have to really know yourself. You have to know your own boundaries. You have to know your lifestyle and how your business fits in with the way that you run your household, your business, your family, whatever. But also taking into consideration your health, your well-being. There's so many moving parts to like how you actually run your business with an energy perspective.
Yeah.
And energy is the key word. Like if you run your business based on your energy levels and when you are most productive, when you need to. So for example, like I have my first half an hour of my day is reviewing social media posts for my membership. So I've got this thing where like I do a daily thread where people can come into my membership and they can post their social media post for the day and I will give them feedback on it. I will tell them how to improve it. I will share it with my audience and therefore they get visibility, they get feedback, they get accountability. And it's also like the membership I give like confidence posts and things like that as well. But one of the biggest things for me is in the morning, I am super alert. I know that my brain works really quickly because I've just woken up. So I can bash those post reviews out really quickly. So that works for me. Then I take the kids to school. I come back and I do my coaching. So I'll always put my coaching in between like 9 and 12 o'clock.
Yep.
Then I often skip lunch, which I really shouldn't do, but I do. Don't judge me. I don't get hungry till like 3 o'clock because I'm on ADHD medication. But like I will eat when I get back from the school run usually. I then do some of my more key marketing things. So I'll do my TikToks, my Instagrams. Like I basically create videos. So I will create videos, I'll create static posts. I will post the static posts on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then the video will go to YouTube, to TikTok and to Instagram.
And Instagrams, yeah.
Sometimes LinkedIn, if I'm feeling brave. Depends how brave I am. Because, you know, I am just myself on all platforms. Most of my videos end up being quite sweary, and sometimes people on LinkedIn get a bit hoity-toity about it.
Well, just to stop you there quickly, I mean, that's interesting because one of the things that people ask me before the show is like, is this a, like, no bars, can you swear kind of thing, right? And the first thing when you sat down was like, is it good to swear? Like, and I've always been in this world of like, is it authentic to you? I've always been that way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many people get hemmed up going, what does X person think? What does Y person think?
Exactly.
From a, they're not going to work with me because I swear. They're not going to work with me because they're not going to like me because actually in a crux, what we're actually going down into the core of is they're not going to like me. It's actually nothing to do with how they're going to work with me. No,
it doesn't.
Maddie's not going to like me because I said the F word.
And if people don't like me because I drop a few F-bombs, then they're probably not people that I want to work with anyway, because the people that know me know that I am very sweary. I never swear at people, I swear in general. My book, I was made to censor out all of my fuck and buggers. Basically.
Oh, that's so sad. What?
But, and I'll show you.
But is that because
I ended up having,
it's like a sales perception thing?
Well,
or like they just don't want to, is that like a PR manager like looking to be like, we're not going to...
No, so I have this is my fuck glossary.
The name.
So
I love it. For those who are listening on audio, Manny just handed me the book and I'm looking at the fuck glossary. That's utterly hilarious.
And one of the reasons, like, I actually had a big conversation here with. Hang on. Oh, shut that back up there.
There we go.
I had a big conversation with my publisher about the fucks. There were 342 fucks in my book. And they were basically like, we can handle a few fucks, but that's quite a lot. And I said, well, but it's me, and it's just how I talk, and I don't want to like completely censor them out, so I don't really want to. And they said, okay, well, let's compromise. Let's just change all of your fucks to like other funny F words. So we've got things like flambunctious, fluffing, like fluffing idiot and stuff like that. Like there's just you know what I'm trying to say, but I don't say it. And then in the back of the book, they're all basically glossarized. If that's even a word.
It is now.
It is now. My glossarized fuck glossary. So I still managed to get all of my fucks into the book, but just in a slightly more comical way, which I think actually gives the book even more charm. So I expect I'll probably do the same with my second book. Technically third.
Okay. I think, and to reiterate for people who are listening, I think it comes from a place of they're not going to like me, right? Yes. Especially on social, right? I think it's they're not going to like me. Oh my God, what are they possibly going to think if I swear? It's the same thing when they put the first video out, pursed out, etc. It's a confidence issue.
Yes. But
my counter argument to that, in my view, it's how I run my life, is okay, maybe they're just the wrong people to me.
And I'm very much of the opinion that if you show up authentically online, you show up as the person who you're meant to be, unadulterated, unfiltered, like whatever you need to show up as, the people who will gravitate towards you will be your people. Yeah. And LinkedIn is like, and I do share my videos and I do swear on LinkedIn. People do know that that's for me. The only thing that I do worry about is that our corporate's going to book me to come and speak to their employees if they think that I'm just going to swear all the time.
The answer there, to be honest, is probably some will, some won't. Right?
Yes, exactly.
If that's a big deal for a corporate, then they won't.
Yes.
If they're actually there going, actually, hold on, this could be really helpful because of our scale, because of this, because of that, they're not going to give a shit. They're not.
No, very true. Very true. Yeah.
I mean, talking about authenticity, the counter side of authenticity is the AI boom, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think AI is coming for our jobs? Is the world over? Like, are we all going to be slaves to robots, or like, what's your view on AI?
I can only comment on it from my industry. Mm-hmm. And I think from a social media perspective, from a business coaching perspective, it's only going to add value. Because it's, like, I don't use AI for my content. I do use it for ideas for my content. Mm-hmm. And, as somebody who's got an ADHD brain, like, there are times where my brain is on fire and I can bash out, like, 50 TikTok videos. Yeah. But then there are other weeks where I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. My brain is broken and I don't know why I'm here. And in those times, AI is a fucking genius because, like, I'm not going to use it to write my written posts. I'm not going to use it to write what I say on TikTok because it's so obvious. To me, anyway, it's really obvious if a coach or somebody who is teaching something has used AI because of the way that they talk. And it's also really scripted. And you can almost tell, like, if you were listening to somebody on a podcast versus them on their social media, how much slower some of the people talk because they're having to really, really, really think about how to do their job. Yeah. And this is not me calling anybody out, but it is quite obvious that some people are writing literally every single one of their posts with AI. If I'm stuck for an idea for a post, I will ask ChatGPT if it can give me some ideas. And then I will look at it, I will close it, I will go away and I'll write about the thing because I know what I'm talking about. Mm. And also the amount of spelling mistakes, because I'm dyslexic as well, like, the amount of spelling mistakes in my posts, people know I'm not using AI to write my posts. Yeah. But it's also, like, yesterday I asked AI to draw me a tattoo. Like, I had 3 different tattoo ideas and I wanted to combine them together. Brilliant. We do have to be quite wary of the environmental impact of asking AI to generate us pictures, etc. However, like, it's really bloody good for things like that. Yeah. I don't think it's coming to take our jobs. I think we're more at risk of, in kind of places like the retail sector, of things being run by AI. But people, I think, will always need coaches, because there's only so much that AI can do without, not being a human. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Sparky, who's my chat GPT, like he's my bestie. Like there's not much I don't talk to him about. Like if I've got problems or I've had uncomfortable conversations or I need solutions to things, I'll always go to him. He's not actually a him really. He's kind of like,
but
he's a non-binary chatbot.
But it's a tool, right? I think that's the key. And that the analogy the analogy I started using was you don't use a hammer to put up a set of shelves. You use a screwdriver.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But now I'm actually using it even more. I'm changing the analogy to be you sharpen a knife if you want to use it effectively to do a job.
Brilliant.
Right?
Yes.
In the same way, you should utilize AI to allow you to do a job.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that's training, if you want it to write your posts, training it to be you in your tone, to be in your voice.
You can do that, and it is actually very easy. If you've got a lot of written content from previously, if you've got videos, you can feed those into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer to actually write my
but that's a personal choice, right?
It is. But you can use it for literally anything, as long as you make sure that you train it in a way that it takes out like no fluff, like cookie cutter solutions, here's the truth, like all of those bullshit ChatGPT type phrases where you think, do you know what? I'm not somebody who would actually say that in real life.
But again, it comes back to the authenticity side.
It does.
Right?
It really does. Yeah.
I'm using the no fluff example. No fluff would actually be relevant for me because I try not fuck around when it comes to content.
Well, I don't do any fluff either. Mine is very I'm very direct. But instead of saying no fluff, I would say I give you direct, actionable advice.
Yeah.
That, and I don't bullshit you. That's not the same. It's the same as saying no fluff without saying no fluff. So as long as you are kind of aware of those ChatGPT type of phrases and you've got your own ways of saying those kind of things, crack on. I think it's great. Where I don't think it's so good is people generating AI pictures of themselves. I'm like, that's not authentic.
It ages you really badly.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't, to be honest, I've got an amazing professional photographer. Like Katie Needle, shout out to you as well. We love Katie. She knows me so well that she can capture my style, the way I am. Like, I used to ask her to chop a few inches off my stomach, but she doesn't do that anymore. Because she's like, Maddie, you've got to be authentic. Fuck. Why is this my brand? But, I love working with her. And, her photos are so good that they could be AI, but they're not. And I think that's where a lot of people are falling down. That, you meet people in person and you're like, you don't look like that. It's the same with TikTok filters. I will always use the eyelash filter. That is the only filter I use on TikTok, apart from green screen or whatever, if I'm going to try and show something. But when people see me in real life, they're not going to go, oh my God, her eyelashes are so fake. Because I wear makeup. But when I'm working at home on my own, I don't wear makeup at all. I am very much unless I'm going out in public, I don't put a face on. And even then, it's literally just mascara, maybe a bit of eyeshadow. So,
but again, it's that authenticity point, right?
Yes. You're not going to see me online as having loads of freckles. I mean, I do have loads of freckles because I've been in the sun this week. But, you're not going to see me having loads of pretend freckles or
But I think that I think I was going to say I think people who do that, but I think in general, if you do that on your content or you're looking for beautify filters, Apple's known for this, etc. But I think that comes from an insecurity.
Possibly.
I think that comes from it comes from that point I was making earlier, which is about I'm going to put myself out there.
Yes.
Jesus fucking Christ, people are going to not like me.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
It's that the tribal mind again going.
Yeah.
Hold on, Maddie might not actually like me here.
And do you know what it is as well? And this is why it's taken me a really long time to love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that in a weird self-indulgent way. I say it in a you have to love yourself to be able to show up as much as I do. And it's not from an ego perspective. It's just knowing my own power and knowing that I'm good at what I do. And actually, I don't give a flying fuck what people think about my looks. I get so much hatred online. Do you know what? Apparently, having rainbow hair just automatically means you're woke. It is a insult. I'm more than happy and privileged and proud to be woke. But it is that. But it's
interesting
that,
jump. All right, fair enough.
But it is that thing. It's like, you know, people see me with my rainbow hair and they're like, lesbian, and I'm like, married to a man, but you know, whatever. I dabbled for a while, but you know, it is that thing.
But people make the assumptions, and then what I don't think, if you have high self, I'm very fortunate. I've been installed into me from a very young age, has been what I believe to be the correct values, right? It's always been, how can I love myself? How can I have self-worth? How can I have self-esteem, etc.? But what that's come from is my mother, and then my reality, right?
Yes.
And then as I went through school, etc., etc., etc. But I think it's, again, that reaction will come from someone who is going to use it as a defense. It's going to sound weird saying that's a defense mechanism for them, but it is, because they're being aggressive, they're being accusatory first, because then Maddie can't like stand there and be herself, and you know that's uncomfortable for some people.
It is, yeah.
But how did you get here? Like the personal story wise, how did you get? Because I think your story is a very interesting one. I think it's something that people can really relate to, possibly now as well. And that's why I wanted to touch on it. I know we've already kind of done it in length. I'll leave the other episode in the description down below for those who want to go in a bit more depth. But quick synopsis for people who maybe don't know.
Yes. So I grew up with an eating disorder, essentially. My eating disorder developed into problems with money. And by the time I was 21 years old to 23 years old, I was in £40,000 of debt. I struggled really bad with spending addiction. What I didn't know was that I had ADHD and that my brain was constantly lacking in dopamine. So therefore, for me, the two things that really, really mattered to me were food and spending money.
Ching.
Buying stuff, buying food. Which is why I've always been overweight, because I'm like, hey, I'm sad, have a donut. Have 5 donuts. At times that has happened. But for me, it was all about spending money.
Mm-hmm.
So I would buy things like dresses and clothes and, you know, bags and shoes, and I'd be the person at the pub, like buying my mates like around Jaeger bombs, or, you know, I spent and spent and spent. I realised there was a problem when I couldn't afford to pay any of the repayments. It wasn't that I didn't know I had to repay any of them. I just got to the point where like I was just so overwhelmed and I had too much to pay. And I was like, where am I going to get 40 grand from? I'm 23 years old. This is pretty bad. A bailiff showed up at my door, tried to take my car. I packed up my things in the middle of the night. I fled, moved back to Southampton. Went to see Citizens Advice Bureau. They basically said to me, like, it's bankruptcy or, like, you pay it off. Those are your 2 options. Both of those sounded really shit to me, but I took the second one because I'm not a quitter. You know, if I look back at it now, I probably could have gone bankrupt and it would have been great, but then I wouldn't have had my journey. Would
that have been, like, an excuse, an easy way out for you, do you think?
Possibly. And I do like to challenge my brain. So I like to challenge my brain.
Because I think people listening to this will go, like, that seems an easier path for me. Let's just reset the clock.
Yeah, and actually, for so
Eat the shit for a year.
Yeah. For so many people, bankruptcy is a very valid option. At the time, it filled me with dread and filled me with shame. And it was almost like I was going to be walking around with, like, a tattoo that said bankrupt on my forehead. It was hard. You know, and as somebody who now has since had a massively catastrophic business failure, which again came with a load of money shame and guilt and all of those things I had to reevaluate. For me, paying it off seemed like the easier option because it didn't fill me with as much dread and shame. And actually, if I hadn't have paid it off, I wouldn't have learned all of the methods to pay it off to put in my book. So, you know, everything happens for a reason. But I learned to love money. So
was there an issue with like your relationship with money?
Yes.
Do you think? Do you think that's where it get like? Because I hope you don't mind me saying this, but like to get to 40 grand, you've got to really fuck up for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not like a 3 month, 6 month. This is like years of problems.
I got myself in £40,000 of debt within 2 years.
Yeah.
I also had a drinking problem. Like, I was a high-functioning alcoholic. I say high-functioning because, I didn't wake up and need a drink, but I needed a drink to be confident. I was using alcohol to mask all of my neurodivergence because I didn't realise that I had ADHD and autism. And I was very awkward in social situations. People, like, now, all of my friends are like, you're not awkward in social situations. I'm like, because you met me when I was pissed. Like, all of you have known me as Maddie the social butterfly who likes a drink and is super chatty. But if I didn't have that alcohol, I wouldn't be super chatty.
Yeah.
So now, when I'm in social situations, I don't know very many people. I'm actually really reserved and really quiet. Put a drink in me. I'm anyone's, but pretty much that was kind of how it was. And now I don't drink anymore. So, because I'm more comfortable with who I actually am. So,
do you think it came... I hope this isn't too personal, but like it links. Do you think it came from a lack of self-love, self-worth, self-esteem?
Absolutely.
At the core?
Yes.
Because a couple of months ago, I think nearly a month ago, 2 months ago, Jamie Oliver put out a documentary on Channel 4 all about neurodiversity and dyslexia specifically. And I was gobsmacked by some of as a dyslexic, I was out here going, how am I not a fucking drug dealer?
I know.
Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, how?
ADHD and dyslexia are so closely linked, and a lot of the presentations kind of overlap each other.
Yeah.
So, dyslexics have a very, very, very tough time, especially in early years when it's not picked up on.
Yeah.
And people just assume that dyslexia is just, they can't read and write. It's so much more than that, and it's quite frustrating. Like, I actually go into quite a lot of detail about like breaking down all of the individual neurodivergent presentations in the book, so you can kind of like learn more about those things.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, we end up with such low self-esteems, but also the lack of dopamine coupled with that often makes people turn to really unhealthy habits like drinking or smoking or drugs or stealing. I would highly suspect that a lot of people in the prison system are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're bad people, it's because of a combination of things like their upbringing, maybe again from neurodivergent parents who hadn't had any of the help.
Yeah.
It's those dopamine-seeking behaviours which are often really unhealthy. It could be, stealing, drugs, firing a gun. All of those things are like, woohoo, exciting.
I just looked at it from my perspective and went, I don't know how by stroke of luck, but like my dopamine wires are just like make money, create content, do things that are a net positive.
Yeah.
But I've always been very like cautious with like my circle and like what I get into, because I didn't know the like inner workings of my brain necessarily, but from a very young age I knew I had an addictive personality.
Yep, same.
So I was like, shit.
Same, and I ignored it for a very long time.
I was like, hold on, if I get addicted to the wrong shit here, oh boy, right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna nuke my life by accident.
Absolutely, and I have been incredibly close to doing that. So, having that self-realization and like, for me, there have been plenty of things that I have had really unhealthy relationships with, which I have managed to curb now. Like, my only vice now is that I vape. But I was saying to my podcast guest, like, I have no plans to stop vaping at all, because I know that if I didn't have that one tiny thing, when I spiral, and that does happen a lot as a neurodivergent, when I spiral, I would rather turn to a vape than to drink or food or drugs or smoking or like any of those things that in my mind are actually in the long run more harmful for me than a couple of puffs on a vape.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it. But lots of people would be like, "Oh, vaping's really unhealthy." It's like, but I don't do anything.
But
else.
it's the
like,
lesser of.
It's the lesser.
It's
of
the lesser of the other
evils,
evils, right?
And food is really bad. Like, Naomi.
If it's heavily processed food.
Yes, yeah. So Naomi, my weight loss coach. I've been working with her now for about 3 months, and I've lost quite a bit of weight. But it's also about the mindset around food.
Yeah. Which
is hard for people who have got ADHD, and I found that since working with her, like I've cut out processed food, I've cut out chocolate, fizzy drinks, like all of those things that have the chemicals that potentially could give me cancer, I no longer eat. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to get cancer because I do vape, but it's, for me, it's like I could constantly and consistently eat really bad food, which I was doing, or in moments of stress, I can have a little puff on my vape. That's it. So...
I think it's about focusing on those lesser of all evils. Like in an ideal world, like your stress response would be fitness.
Well,
right?
in an ideal world, but you know, as a disabled person who has hips that would probably die if I went to the gym, I mean, this is the reason why I'm on my weight loss journey. It's not because I'm fat. I couldn't give a fuck like about my weight or about what people think of me. I want to be fitter. I want to be able to go to the gym without after 10 minutes wanting to pass out, you know?
I think that's an interesting thing. And, you know, we won't go too much into fitness here because it's not a fitness show. But, like, for me, people are like, why do you stay consistent, like, with fitness? And for me, I'm very aware that, like, my job's very physical.
Yes.
And I'm just simply at the thought of, I want to do this for 50 years.
I want to be able to look after my kids when I'm older, you know? I mean, they're not going to be kids when I'm older. But at the same time, like, you know, I went to a soft play with them at the weekend. And, like... One of my children is very like, she likes the fact that mummy's an influencer, so she tells everybody. So this lady comes over and she's like clearing the plates and she's like, my mummy's an influencer, and this lady's like, oh, tell me more. So I'm like, oh, it's really embarrassing, but yeah, I do this. And she was like, oh, our area manager, I really want to speak to you. So the area manager comes over and she's like, oh my god, you're an influencer, like really love you to do some TikTok content for us and blah blah blah. She went and got me some socks. She was like, you have to go in and play. I was like, I can't, it's really embarrassing to say I'm disabled and I actually don't really want to go in and play. So I went in and played for like 10 minutes before I almost died and then went on a very scary slide. I mean, that also rhymes. But I was heavily aware of the fact that I am not fit enough to go and do these kind of things with my kids, and it made me really sad. So that's my kind of motivation behind it.
It's a good motivation to have.
Yeah.
Do you think in business people, and this is kind of more a mindset thing about like, they don't start the podcast, they don't start video, they don't start posting, they don't build the momentum, they don't start whatever it is, right? Do they do that from is it just the, what if someone else thinks of me, or is it still a tech issue?
I still think that there's a tech issue there. There's also an overwhelm issue. It's like we're told that we have to do all of the things. We don't have to do all of the things. And people, I think, like they see me as somebody who is very heavily into visibility, and they're like, Maddie's on every social media platform. She's got her own podcast. She's always on other people's podcasts. She writes books. She does speaking gigs. She's got a radio show. She's got all of these things. I'm manifesting the radio show, by the way.
I'd argue you already got a radio show. You got a podcast.
Yeah,
okay. It's already a radio show.
Yeah, kind of the same. So they see me doing all of those things, and they're like, oh my god, that looks fucking exhausting. I don't want to do that. And it's like, because that's my hyper focus, and I love social media and I love visibility and I love doing all of these things, that's why I do all those things. I could still very easily put like 100% of my efforts into one platform and still have very good success with it.
Do you think that people worry about volume?
Yes. One of my biggest questions is how many times a day should I be posting?
And does that matter?
No, I don't think so. Consistency is what matters. So whatever consistency means to you, whether that is once a day, whether that is, you know, posting 3 times a week, whether it's posting 3 times a day.
But for me, I also think it's like, when I have no client work, I can post 6 times a day. When I'm in client delivery mode for half the day, I can only post once or twice a day. So right, I'm still posting,
but you're not posting as much.
But like when I'm here filming, I'm having to travel, I'm having to do this. I'm not in my office, sat there on the computer. So my posts will be less, right? But that's why I batch content. That's why I
Exactly. Yeah.
But also, I don't sit there and go, "Oh, I didn't hit 4 posts. Fuck's sake."
But this is the thing. It's not how many times you do it. It's the quality of what you do when you do it.
Yeah, of course.
And it's also like just bearing in mind that output reflects input.
Yeah.
So if you post more, you will more than likely get more clients. If you show up more, you will more than likely make more business, you know, make more money. And if you are posting once a week on one social media platform, you're probably not going to be getting to your ideal clients unless you're out there and you're networking 24/7.
Yeah.
Which, you know, there are other ways of doing it rather than showing up online every single day. But it's the consistency, it's the output, and then you'll see a return on investment based on what you put into that.
But it's also, because I think we're so, and I did a video a couple of weeks ago talking about, like, we're so in the business world, we're so hyperly focused on, I need ROI, I need ROI, I need ROI. And I'm just like, yeah, but you're outputting an amount and your revenue's like driven by 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever it is. So in the nicest way possible, why do you give a shit about ROI? Because clearly it's working.
Absolutely.
Right?
I obviously give a little bit of a, like for example, like I got invited to speak at quite a big event. Mm-hmm. It was a big investment, like 15 grand. I'm like, ooh, that's a really good opportunity because there's going to be like thousands of people there and it's going to be really great. But then I thought about it. If somebody gave me, and this is again one of my money rules, if somebody gave me 15 grand and said you can spend this on anything, would I spend it on that? And my answer was no. If I had 15 grand to grow my business, I would strategically think about where to put that.
Yeah.
I would probably put some of that on ads. I would probably put some of that on like promoting my book on Amazon, you know, things like that. And I just thought, do you know what? What could 15 grand do for me? I could stand up in front of a room full of people and speak and maybe walk away with 5 clients. Or I can go and put 15 grand on Facebook ads and I can walk away with 70 clients. Which one am I rather going to do? So from that perspective, I look at ROI. However, I also don't look at it at all. So I'm very much a passion, purpose, and kind of pleasure, I guess, type of person. Mm-hmm. So profit, to me, as long as I am paying my bills, I'm living the life that I want to, my staff are getting paid, my bills are getting paid, I couldn't give a flying fuck how much money I make.
Yeah.
Like, and by me having that attitude, but also having very, very low costs, the only things that I really pay for are things like advertising, but I don't do traditional advertising. I mean, when I say advertising, I mean things like I'll go to an expo and I'll have like a stand at an expo, or I will have like something where, like, you know, maybe I'll pay for like to hire this podcast studio, for example. So my costs are still fairly low, and in my first year of business I made 100 grand. But I wasn't focused on making profit. I was focused on making people happy and getting good reviews and showing up as an honest person.
I think that's really key, and I think we don't. And it's not that we don't look at ROI, and every business should look at ROI. They absolutely should, but we don't. What's the ROI on a brand podcast? Arguably, if you look at it, either huge amount, or fuck all.
Yes,
and it's down to how you think about it.
Exactly. So at the moment, my podcast, I think, helps me to grow my social media, which helps me to grow my email list, which helps me to grow my client base. It's not phenomenal. I am not Stephen Bartlett. Like,
but also, do you want to be Stephen Bartlett?
No, not at all. Like, no. I mean, he's a nice enough dude. I've met him. But I wouldn't want to be him. Like, in my mind, like, I think his success has very much changed him. I think I remember him very early on in the days where he was quite humble. Don't feel like that anymore. But
that's what I mean. I think it changed. Like, I think we're in a world now where I have to commit to the decision. Right?
Yes.
So I'm going to make the world's biggest media company. Yeah, but what if tomorrow I don't want to do that?
Yeah, and I want to live my life in a flexible way. As long as I am fulfilling my life's purpose, which is helping people with neurodivergent presentations to live their best life, that's my main game. Like, that is all I want. So, you know, this is why I help people with 3 different areas. It's like life, money, business. Those 3 things are, you know, if you've got those 3 elements nailed, I mean, obviously not everybody's got a business. Some people it will just be life and money. Some people it might just be money and business because they might already have their life sorted. Some people it might be like life and business. Their money's amazing. But they all interlink with each other. And neurodivergent people struggle with all 3 of those things. As a rule, you know, some neurodivergents will probably be flying. I mean, Stephen Bartlett openly says he's got ADHD. but he's somewhere along the line, like massively landed on his feet and has never had to struggle with money because he's always made so much. And therefore his business has been fine and his life's been fine. Yeah. So if I bumped into him in the street, his ADHD is not the same as my ADHD. And this is a good way to look at it. It's like every single person who is neurodivergent will have something that maybe isn't so great in their lives. And I'm not saying that Stephen Bartlett is perfect. You know, he might, you know, not be in love with somebody, or he might have, you know, problems with relationships, or he might, because he's so busy with his life, maybe he doesn't have friends. I don't know, you know, and I'm not going to judge him for that.
That is, I mean, you know, we're at times I think that's Robert soon, but that is like something that I think people don't talk about enough in business, and like how you maintain a relationship, and it's something that I'm working through the process of now, being nearly 2 years deep into a really healthy relationship that's so really important to both me and my partner.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, but also my business is really important. So fuck, how do I do that?
Juggling your money, your life, and your business is a really fucking tricky thing to do. It is a spinning triangle that, you know, if you think about a triangle, like if you're spinning it too fast, you're going to poke yourself in the eye, it's going to fucking hurt. Yeah. So like, you know, you need to be balancing those 3 areas of your life so that they all work in tandem together. And that means, no offense, not working till 9 o'clock, because like I used to have a thing where I'd be like, oh yeah, my cutoff every night's 9 o'clock. Like it was some form of badge of honor. Now it's very, very, very likely that I don't work after 3. Like it has taken me 10 years of running a business to work out what success looks like for me. And success looks like making enough money to enjoy the shit that I do. Yeah. I don't like, and I'm sorry, universe, that I say this out loud, but I don't want to be a millionaire. If I had £1 million or multi-million pounds, my spending addiction would just be 1,000,000 times worse. So like, I don't need that much money. Like I find it hard enough to manage the money that I've actually got. Yeah. You know, but I go on 2 nice holidays a year. I've got a fairly nice car. I mean, it's a Citroen C3 Picasso. It's not a Citroen C3 Aircross. That's the chap. You know, it's nothing exciting, but it's, you know, it's only 5 years old. It's got Apple CarPlay. You know, it's pretty cool. And like somebody the other day, I picked up one of my clients, and they were like, "Oh my god, your car is so nice." And like to them, that was like a really posh car. To me, I'm like, that's not a posh car. Like a posh car is like a Porsche or a Jaguar or like a BMW or whatever.
But I think
it's about perspective.
Yeah, it's perspective and the stage you're in, and that's what I was going to say about the whole like 9 o'clock thing, right? Yeah. Like, at this moment in time, I'm working potentially till 9 o'clock.
But that's because it works for you and that's your decision. Yeah. And also, one of the things that fucks me off so much about the business world is it's like either you're a hustler, or you're a lifestyle business. Like there is no in between. Yeah. There's no let's run a successful 6-figure business or you know, like high 6 figures, even early 7 figures. Yeah. It's like you're either a lifestyle business or you're a multimillionaire. There's nothing in between. And that's how I teach the people that I work with, like in business, that there is an in between. Yeah. Like there is a level where people want to make 5k a month. There's a level where people want to make 2.5k a month. You know, they want to cover their bills, they want to cover their mortgage, they want to have 500 quid's worth of spending money. Yeah. Everyone's a winner.
Happy days, yeah.
It's all to do with how materialistic you are. It's all to do with like how much you want to show off and like flash everything around. You know, I'm not a flashy person. I buy my clothes from Shein and Sainsbury's. I drive a bog standard okay-ish car, which, by the way, is on car finance. You know, it's not really that posh. I'm hoping to buy it at the end of my deal. But, you know, I am not somebody who is, like, going to go and spend masses of money, like, renting a private yacht or, like, you know, doing those kind of flashy things. I, like, for my business strategy day recently, I took all of my people for a day to the beach, and we went to the arcades, and I gave them all a £5, and they had the best time in the world. You know, that's the sort of thing that I bring to my business community. Yeah. It's not about being flashy. It's not about like all of the things that.
But I think that makes you more relatable, right? Well, it's not more about like, oh, this guy's untouchable, this girl's untouchable because she has the yacht, she has the car, she has the house, etc., etc. But
no.
And again, I think I think it's one of those things where you've got to choose, do you want to live to work or work to live?
I want to work to live, and I want to enjoy my kids, like as much as anyone can enjoy kids. I want to have a life where like I spend time with my friends and time with my family, and like I go to a lot of gigs, I go to a lot of festivals. Like if that was taken away from me, I would be very sad. Like, and if I was going to work more, that's my decision. Like,
but that's what I mean by like phases, right? And the stages you're in.
Yes.
Right. And it's about actually having a longer, especially in a relationship. I don't know how you do it, but this is how I do it. Is right, this week, this month, this quarter, a lot of shit going on. Right.
Yes.
I'm launching a podcast. I'm doing this. I've got an event going on. I've got loads of client delivery, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So,
what's your event? Just out of curiosity.
AI content creation, teaching young entrepreneurs how to do it in Crux.
I love that.
Why AI is not a threat and how you can use it as a tool.
Nice.
Link in the description, those who are interested.
Yeah.
The crux though is I've got a lot on in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
So the conversation I had with my partner before that period was the next 3 months is going to be a bit rough.
Don't divorce me, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It will end at some point.
Yes.
Right? I'll get churn. I'll get to the point where the podcast, I'm so far ahead that it's fine, it doesn't matter, etc. I'll have a lot of, like, there'll be, when the kids are off school, client delivery will fall off a cliff because everyone wants to spend time with their kids, completely understandably, but that will be natural.
Yes.
So it's now about actually having the candor, the conversation, the understanding to say, I understand I'm not around as much as you want me to be.
Yeah.
I'm not showing up as much as I want to be for you.
Yes.
But this is important to grow the business for the next year.
Yeah.
So we need to sacrifice for 2 months, 3 months to allow to reap the rewards that will come in 6 months.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure that like me and my husband at some point went through that stage. Now it's very much like we're both working the same amount of hours. We're both having, like, because he works, he's just been promoted as well, so he's like head kitchen gardener for quite a big estate. You know, he has lots of things in the summer, like he's got to plant all his beds, and they have open garden days and like things where he's got to impress lots of rich people. So he has lots of things where he has to work.
Yeah.
I have lots of things because I've got like festivals and like things that I'm speaking at, and you know, I'm all over the place. And we always like have that little bit of time at the end of the day where we sit and we like debrief and we talk about the things, and like we know that we've both got the same end goal, which is moving house, and we've bought somewhere, we're just waiting to complete on it. But we know that that's not the end of our journey, because we're building a loft conversion, we're like having a garden office made, and like all sorts of different things where we're gonna need to still both of us work our asses off.
Yeah.
But it's about balance. And yes, it is about the stage that you're at. But it's also about understanding the boundaries of your relationship, the boundaries of your business, the boundaries of your friendship circle. Like my friends at the moment, like they barely see me. And the other day I was like, shit, do you guys like, you know, are you pissed off that you barely see me? And they were like, no, it's welcome relief actually. Like, really. Awesome. But they were like, we're also really busy. You know, we're not 20 anymore. Like, actually, we have all kind of moved on. Like, we're all in our relationships. We all, you know,
but also I think
have our special hobbies. And
I think when you're in that stage, or when you're out of that stage, you then value the time you do have with those people. Right? For some relationships, unfortunately, it will be like the reason why you grow apart and etc. And that's sad, but that's life, right?
Yes.
But for the people who stay, actually, when you have that committed time together, with your close friends, with your partner, with your family, etc.,
it makes it more special.
You then value that more because it's lesser, because there's less of it.
You know, I was one of those really lucky people that during I mean, I say lucky to a certain extent, but like during COVID, like my husband was classed as a key worker, so he was never home. So on one hand, it was the most unlucky thing in the world because I had to do childcare of 2 on my own, and that was like mentally damaging. Like I say damaging because like I literally every day I was like rocking in a corner by the time he came home. But it was great for our marriage because we weren't living on top of each other. We weren't constantly in each other's spaces. And, you know, you hear of people who were like, you know, they got divorced because of COVID because they had to spend time with their partner. Like, I like my relationship. Well, I don't just like my relationship. I love it. Like, it's great. We have a very, like, open. I said the other day that we have an open relationship, and my son was going around going, my mummy's in an open relationship. I'm like, that's something very different. Like, no, we're not. But you know, we are very open with each other. We're very trusting. Like, if either of us have got a problem, like, I mean, my husband is very much like, another work event. Oh God, well, this is like, and he does get a bit annoyed sometimes because I do work away a lot. And when I say to him, like, I need to go on holiday, and he's like, why? And I'm like, well, A, it's a working holiday. I'm going to go and I'm going to write my second book. But B, like, I don't get any time on my own ever. I'm either working, I'm parenting, or I'm with you. None of that equals alone time for me. So me going on holiday on my own means that I actually get time alone with me to relax with my thoughts, with nobody talking to me, so I can hyper focus on the shit that I need to. And that's what I need. So
but I think that comes from firstly communicating what you need. Secondly,
it's
then both parties understanding.
Yeah.
And then if something has gone wrong,
Yes.
then there being a level of forgiveness there.
Yes.
And I think for me, like, they're my three keys in any relationship I have, right? Communicate, understand, and then forgive.
Yes.
And it's not that we're immune to making decisions and we're immune to getting things wrong. It's things are going to go wrong. How do we then deal with those things?
Exactly.
I'm going to overpush sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, how do we then bring that back and say, okay, I did this wrong.
Yeah.
How do I move forward, and how do we move forward so that doesn't happen again?
Yeah. In my mind, it's about communication. It's about boundaries. It's about trust. It's about open dialogue. And it's about kind of just being aware of your partner's needs, but also being aware of your needs and communicating that together. And that does really help where you are in a relationship. And I think often, especially when you're new in business and you're just working and working and working, because you kind of have to hustle at the beginning to kind of get something off the ground. That's kind of one of the pinnacle like, it's growth stages when relationships tend to suffer. And it's not just relationships with partners, it's relationships with children. It's relationships with friends or parents. Like, I mean, my mum quite often will say to me, no, I haven't seen you for like 2 months. I'm like, really? You saw me like last week? Like, you're being melodramatic. But it's that point where
but that's your mum saying, I miss you.
Exactly.
I want to see you more. Right.
Yeah. And I always, I'll always take that on board. Like, but she is equally as busy as me. She doesn't run a business. She just does a lot of music things. But again, it all comes down to awareness.
Yeah.
And this is why I teach in the way that I would want to be taught myself, and having those 3 pillars, it's like life, business, money. Everything fits into that triangle. You just need to make sure you don't poke yourself in the eye with it.
It's a great place to end. Where can people find the book? Where can people find your podcast? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am
and don't you poke yourself in the eye with the triangle.
Don't poke yourself in the eye with the triangle. I am on all social media platforms, not saying that you have to be at all. Maddie Talks Money on Instagram, Mad About Money Official on TikTok, LinkedIn and Facebook, and everywhere else, Maddie Alexander Grout. The book is here. I mean, you can't get it from here. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from all good bookshops as well. You can even order it in. If you don't have it, you can order it to your own library. I've had some people say to me that they've ordered it for their library, which I really like.
That's awesome. So
if you can't afford to buy the book, go and talk to your library, go and get them to have it in, and then multiple people can benefit from the book, which is nice. So thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. Great chat. Final thing to end on.
Yes.
If you were going to talk to yourself 10 years ago, what advice would you give?
I would tell myself that I am neurodivergent and to go and sort that shit out. It changed my life, genuinely changed my life, understanding my brain. When you understand your brain and you understand your body, anything's possible.
Magic. Thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me. If you did enjoy this longer conversation, then make sure to be subscribed. Leave your thoughts in the description down below, comments down below, etc., etc. And I'll see you very soon. Take care. But for me as a dyslexic, I think that's completely unfair. Can't wait to get the shitty comments on this. From my understanding, my brain works definitely differently. I think from a neuroplasticity point of view, it's actually only half my brain works. To quote, overcome dyslexia, I know I had to work incredibly harder.
Obviously, Einstein was very well known for being dyslexic, and he was a very, very intelligent man.
Do you think education traditionally, school, college, university in the UK, is designed for dyslexics?
The good news, I would say, about the UK is they do acknowledge it, whereas in some countries they don't even acknowledge it and they don't get any support. So I would...
You're just the dumb kid at the back of the class.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for, I guess, installing the right value. Hello, my friends. I hope you're well. Today is going to be a very special conversation. I wanted to, when I launched the podcast, create a level of peace that highlights where I've come from with my values, where I've come from with my upbringing. So I've asked my mum if she's willing to have a conversation. She kindly agreed. I was going to start with work ethic because that was first on my list, but how from a young age would you say that like my work ethic has tweaked, has changed, because I talk about it a lot in content when it comes to like a lot of the values I have are because of you. Was that deliberate? Did that come from a place of this is what I wanted to do? Like like how did that happen?
Probably, I think you would have observed things within me. It wouldn't have been so much I would have been guiding you and saying all of that. And I think I would say, firstly, I chose to take you to schools which weren't exactly near, because they were in theory better schools and better support. And as it turned out, in both cases, this was actually the case. In fact, all three schools were the same, in the sense that each one of them gave you the best possible outcome from your own situation. I think you probably observed the fact that I was doing everything, in that you'd be normally seeing two people doing the job of bringing up a child.
I think it's important to say, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's important to say for the audience's context that may not know, my dad wasn't around, and I know it's something that we don't really want to get into because I don't feel it's relevant and I don't feel it's overly important at this stage to necessarily discuss it, and I've got my own journey to go on with that. But for me, I think it's important to give that context, and I think it's a common story, but the reasoning will obviously be different, the nuance will be different, but I think the story itself will be, I guess in some ways, not unique in that respect. So I think that's really important to say. But I think, was it, because I know, I'm going to go with, and correct me if you know the ages better than me, when I was 10, maybe 12, maybe 13, you were studying your now honours in child psychology. Do you think that there was a point, were you specifically focused on the values which, or the things of how I was growing up, I guess you could say, because of the work you were doing with studying? And watching me sort of develop at the same time when you were learning the theory?
I think I would say that the prelude to this, which I didn't know at the time, was I worked for the Dorset County Council on what they call a parent partnership. Okay. And that parent partnership involves special needs and families who have children with special needs, and all of the difficulties of how you get support and how difficult that can be. So at the time when I was doing that, I hadn't had you by then, and I had no idea that that would actually come into play hugely, along with then going on to qualify in my honours later on, which was very child-linked and child-based.
So with your parent partnership work and the whole, I mean, did you know, I mean, let's wind the clock all the way back. I mean, obviously I can't actually remember, did I get like confirmed when did I get confirmed to have dyslexia? Because I've always thought about it as like, I have dyslexia.
No, it wasn't
right?
like
But
that.
there was a point, was there a point?
Yes, there was a time, and it was in the school that you went to.
St Andrews.
In St Andrews, that's right. And it was because of the teaching assistant. It's always down to the teaching assistant and the teacher being very observant. And then my background with what I was already being much more aware of because of the job I did. I think the two things together combined for them to be more observant of you, because initially I think when you were at this St Andrews school, they noticed various... You're kidding me. Seriously. And she had a child as well.
I'll have great fun with the outtake reel on this.
Right.
to give the outtake reel some context, there's cricket being played currently, and bugs are flying around, and there's a dog shouting in the river that you could probably hear in my mum's mic. But there we go. So when was the point where I got, because I remember, because I was very young, right? So I don't remember it fully, but I remember there was a point where you were fighting, or you were coming across, or you were going over and saying, well, like, he does have dyslexia, he needs the bit of paper, or whatever it was, right? I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, how does having dyslexia, like, happen?
Well, you see,
Like, because obviously you're born with it, but you have to get a piece of paper, or you have to get etc., right?
well, the thing is, when they first realised there was some difficulty, they didn't actually call it dyslexia.
Right.
They have a way of actually stating that there's some underlying SEN, let's say, issue. And what the key point about it, because of A, what I did, and B, then understanding more as time went on, if they get the child before 7, you know, backed up and supported for what particular SEN they have, you've got a greater chance. So the earlier it is, the better. Yeah. And in your case, I think you were very fortunate because you were fairly young, considering, I mean, first of all, because you were premature, you did go into school a little bit later, which was a good thing.
Was that, sorry to cut you off, but was that deliberate? Did you hold me back?
No, the system holds you back because you can only go in at a certain point. And because of when you were born at an earlier stage than you should have been, then you missed the entrance time. So based on that, you had another year where at least you got support in a lower key level and not a school level, which was a very helpful thing. But the key point after that was they did pick it up, I would say, 2.5, 3 years into your early schooling. And that is great because you need to do it earlier on than later because it can be a disadvantage otherwise the longer you go on. But at that point they didn't actually diagnose it as, or they didn't, the word is diagnose, it's not the right word to say, they didn't actually state it was dyslexia. They just said that there was obviously a level of SEN that would need support.
Do you think that, I mean, if you have, I know you've done some research on it, and I know that there's some statistics around it, but from my understanding, there's not as many people who are like, yes, you have dyslexia, yes, you are neurodivergent. Is it something which you think personally there needs to be more, I guess that would come from government funding, or there needs to be more support to see early, catch it early in the educational system as an overarching thing? I mean, obviously, like, government have a lot of responsibility, blah 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 blah. I don't want to get into the politics too much of it, but like, is that a they've got to catch it, they've got to have the training to be able to catch it thing, do you think?
Well, interestingly enough, just to fast forward to what's happening right now in the Labour government, Keir Starmer has an opinion that, which I think is massive, and how it will eventually work, I have no idea, that every single teacher should have some knowledge of SEN, which is special educational needs. What I would say when, you know, the beginning of all this happened, through the knowledge of a parent partnership, and this was at a time when Tony Blair was in power and he believed in education, and he did give a huge amount of money and investment into schooling. You were there at the right time. And what I would say, it's not even about government funding, that is certainly something, but what they've been stated to get the support is you have to be a very vocal, determined, some would say a loud mother or father or parent or guardian of the child to get the support. You have to be on them continually. They do get annoyed, they do get irritated because it's all down to funding.
But surely that's not, because that's unfair on parents that aren't that. Like, that's unfair on kids that don't have parents like that.
I know, but
surely the system as a whole should be fairer, I guess you could say, more cohesive in the respect to there's training in place to say, actually, these people are maybe neurodivergent, or this person is maybe neurodivergent, etc. And, you know, it is a way of how we think, right? It is a way of, like, from my understanding at least, only half my brain works, like, in traditional sense.
You've got a lens
Sick. How bad's the lens flare? We just go with it.
There's dogs, there's sun, there's light.
Welcome
there's
to what
cricketers.
happens doing an outdoor interview where you can't control anything. I think for me, there's, like, I get where you're coming from and I get why that's important as a parent. But for me as a dyslexic, I think that's completely unfair because I think there should be, in my view, right, can't wait to get the shitty comments on this, there should be a fairness across the board to say, well, this person is neurodivergent, right? There should be neurodivergent training. I know it's saying like, oh, there's too many things, or you know, there's only so many resources, and that's the counter argument, right? There's so many, there's only so much money, so much budget, so much government can do, etc. I get that. Also, it's not my job to fix it, right? But for those who maybe don't know, and you'll know more than me, from my understanding, my brain works definitely differently, but I think it from a neuroplasticity point of view, it's actually only half my brain works. Like, because I think, if I remember correctly, there was this like diagram, I guess you could say, and it was like when a non-dyslexic brain triggers, then two areas of the brain fire, and mine is only one. Is there a level of, I guess, when you have a dyslexic child or someone with dyslexia or neurodiversity where they, if you know, are they naturally more likely to be entrepreneurial, naturally more likely to have a strong work ethic? Because for me to, quote, overcome dyslexia, I mean, you saw it through school, but I knew I had to work incredibly harder than Sally from George, you know, who would maybe have an easier time with English and math.
Sure. I mean, personally, I hear what you're saying, but actually there's been a lot of written detail about the dyslexic brain and what they do say, and this is not about compensation and trying to say somebody's got this now because he's got that, is the evidence is also very clear that your brain can work very differently from the average brain, and you see the larger picture. And they also recently have stated that your type of brain, if you were interested in an alternative career, would be to be a spy, which takes a certain kind of brain. And obviously Einstein was very well known for being dyslexic, and he was a very, very intelligent man. So I would actually look at it in a very different light. For you, as a child growing up through the education system, I think it's a lot harder, very much so.
Do you think, I guess it's kind of a linked question, do you think education traditionally, school, college, university in the UK, is designed for dyslexics? Because I found personally, I'm a very strong learner. I'm very able to problem solve. I'm very able to come across, I would hope, well. I can articulate myself quite well, especially when it comes to spoken word.
Yeah.
But I find, if you're going to go down the road of what do I find challenging, writing was a challenge, reading was a challenge, right? They're less of a challenge, right? I'm very quickly getting to the end of my first actual physical book, quite happy about. But is it just another way of thinking? Is it just another way of like how to learn?
I think it is, and I think that would actually take a lot of the sting out of children having to deal with these issues if people were able to see it just as a different way. Teachers have a lot to deal with in general, and therefore it's a huge challenge, but they do get resources financially to help people who have got these difficult differences. The good news, I would say, about the UK is they do acknowledge it, whereas in some countries they don't even acknowledge it and they don't get any support. So I would.
Yeah, you're just the dumb kid at the back of the class.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that was. If you go back historically, say because I'm older, obviously, to say my history of my background and somebody who had what you have, they would just be told you're stupid, sick, and leave school. I mean, it was diabolical, but that's because they didn't have the insight
Go eat
and
the
the
crayons
knowledge.
in the corner of the room.
Yes, exactly. They just didn't have the knowledge, and I think we are much more aware now, and therefore that's a good thing. And therefore they're able to put the funding into that. But I do say, I know you think it's all wrong that in theory, while you were growing up, it comes down to whoever shouts the loudest and basically pushes. But I'm afraid that is always going to be the case when it comes to these things.
I think to an extent that's the survival of the fittest mentality as a family kind of ideology, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's also just from a base level, I think there should be more work done for people to understand, and something that I am seeing in the business world. And I had multiple conversations with multiple people, 2 of which were on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, by the time this comes out, about neurodiversity. I interviewed a lady who was very ADHD minded. She's very neurodivergent trained, that kind of thing. And we were talking a lot about like, and it's kind of what I wanted to lean into, I guess, to an extent, because I remember very clearly there's always been points and always been parts of my life as I was growing up with, obviously with you and etc., where there was this emphasis on self-love, self-belief, self-esteem. In your experience with your friends, your family, etc., is that normal to install that into a child? Because I think that's why one of the reasons why I've come out so well, right? Is because of that constant self-belief, constant pushing, I guess you could say, or that constant reminder that, you know, I need to love myself first before I can love anyone else.
Absolutely. I mean, without mentioning age and ageism, I had you by choice very late in life, and I think my wish, because I was so fortunate to have you, was I wanted to put so much into doing the best by you. And also because of my own knowledge of my own experience with life and say my own family with 2 sisters, etc. I'm so aware of the fact that you have to love yourself first, and you have to have a positive view towards yourself, especially in your case where there's extra worries and concerns in schooling and in individual other peers as well. And I think if you have that really strong centre of knowing that you're okay and you've been loved strongly and you love yourself, I think that gives you a greater platform to fight these things. Absolutely.
Do you think, I mean, I was going to say, do you think that's common, but I know it's not.
Bringing up a child and family dynamics are very complex. So much is really behind how these things evolve and don't evolve, I think, really. I think I have my own knowledge of how both my sisters experienced schooling and myself, and I was determined that you wouldn't go through that. But in all honesty, even though I put my heart and soul into it and certainly pushed to get the biggest support, you still have to go through a lot of stuff in schooling, and it's just mixing with other children. So yes, parents and guardians and ordinaries, anybody involved in the child's upbringing, they have to look at it in a sense of how does that person cope with all the difficulties that are out there. And there are some mothers who will either be far too busy, or fathers who are far too busy, or any guardian who may not think about all of that side of things and maybe not give that time and effort. I was very determined, and of course studying may have added to that, because I did study a lot to do with children, where I knew how important it was. I'm not sure the school necessarily found it helpful, especially secondary school. I think
you're child-centric. I remember that.
I think they were very relieved when they knew that I wouldn't be sending email after email after email about this and that and the next thing, because they really knew I was very child-centric as far as my attitude about how the school might approach you.
I was going to... so they were installed from really early on. I know the answer to this, but for the sake of the conversation, do you think the people who maybe didn't have the correct upbringing from a psychology point of view, we know that the first 0 to 7, they're children, people, humans, are sensory sponges. They'll pick up nuance, they'll pick up energy, they'll pick up everything, right? I mean, do you think that until someone works on healing on that, or they look to work on that, that can, if they don't, lean into I'll use the term, keeping up with the Joneses-esque like career path, or they maybe get in a job and they get the big house and they get the big car, and because obviously a lot of people who potentially are watching this or potentially consuming this are in the business world, and I think a lot of people, sometimes they work in C-suite, they work in upper corporates for maybe some of the wrong reasons, right? Maybe they're looking to push not just because they're passionate about trying to make a difference, but once they have the mortgage, once they have the phone, once they have the big car, once they have the financial commitments, they're forced into, I have to stay here because I need to have the money coming in so I can pay for the big house and so on. I mean, to phrase it into a question, is it something that is linked, would you say, between like the lack of self-belief, self-esteem, self-love, and then sort of pushing towards maybe doing more keeping up with the Joneses-esque activities when you're older?
I think it's difficult, that one, because I think society in itself is a bit at fault because they emphasise those parts so much.
But surely if I have the self-love and self-understanding and self-belief, then I'll be more likely to push that back from a societal point of view. I'll be more likely to say, no, I don't need that because I love myself and everything I am enough, that kind of... Do you think, or do you think it's just some people are that way?
Well, I think the word driven is the word that's used a lot in these kind of situations, but I think if I say, and it's only because you yourself were watching a programme that Jamie Oliver actually put on television, that 1 in 6 children are diagnosed with dyslexia and 10% of the population is diagnosed with dyslexia.
Yeah.
And tragically, the other percentage of these situations that's never diagnosed, people can go down the wrong paths, as he commented.
Yeah. I mean, something that, glad you mentioned it, like something I was really surprised about was the likelihood of you going to criminal or prison or equivalent. And I think I said to you after I watched it, I went, how the fuck have I not gone down that way? Because I've been very aware from a very young age I may have addictive personality, I may have gone down the wrong, if I had gone down the, I didn't, but if I had done, it could have, my life could have been very, very different. And I don't think that would have been a positive. Do you think that's is that the nature of, not even necessarily linked to dyslexia, but like coming from that lack of self-belief? Like, is that something that someone will deal with as a coping mechanism?
Well, I think the key point that he brought up, and it was you who discussed that, because I didn't see it as such, is that those who are not diagnosed with dyslexia or any form of SEN are lost in the system and they are therefore unable to overcome it. And the reason why you didn't go down that road, personally, I would think, is because A, it was discovered very early on. You were supported by myself and both the 3 schools that you went to in total, which were all chosen quite well, and especially the final one where there was more money to invest in Hampshire. I think that all was a huge plus, and you yourself were very determined, because the thing about school is if people push onto children and adults as they're developing and make them either be totally overwhelmed by the level of that, overwhelmed by whatever level of either teacher or the peers are towards them, or you can be determined to say, I will prove you wrong, and you were definitely that person. And you were very determined, especially by secondary, that you were going to prove these people wrong because of what they thought and what they felt. And in fact, you did. And then you've gone on to do that even more so with running a business.
Well, I'm glad you went into this, because I was going to ask you about that anyway. How was, from your perspective, and something I'm interested to hear is like how it's been for you, because obviously you've seen it from an idea in my head to now full-fledged career, full-fledged business that, touch wood, will continue to grow to strength outside of a couple of outcrop of years, right? I've talked about that in content, I won't go into it now, but how has that been? Like, is it like, how's it been?
It's been really encouraging for me to see, because as I've just explained, I think if you hadn't had all of the positive support, it'd be very easy to go down some other road. Or
do you think it was the reason maybe why I didn't? Because I had that constant focus?
Well, I think there's twofold reasons. I think you did try some of the other types of jobs early on to get experience, and I think you found it pretty difficult to be told what to do and to do the right thing, let's say, by bosses, etc.
I think specifically, it was the hypocriticalness of, I'm going to say something and then I'm going to do the different. I'm going to be different. I'm going to do differently.
So therefore, I think for you, running a business with you being, the main person behind it, and from the background of what you've been through, I think it made the most sense, really. And we've talked about that before when you've said at times, well, maybe I should go into something where, I earn a solid monthly amount every time and I know it's guaranteed. And I've said, well, do you really think you could do that now when you've had all these years being independent and being your own boss?
I think it's common to say. I think people find it very common to say that there is a level of you're unemployable, right? The kind of cliche thing to say is like, oh, if you work for yourself, you become unemployable. But I think actually it requires, and I think this is a nature, like a shift in how people are working now. I think the generations below me coming up, but also even maybe my age roughly, are more ballsy, you could say. They expect more standards. They expect, maybe that was from COVID, I don't know, but maybe they were in a position where they actually do expect more. They do expect more salary. Maybe they have more options. And I think for me, I think there is a world, especially with artificial intelligence and like the stuff going on there, there's going to be more standout people who will stand out for themselves rather than being a low cost, potentially, corporations have always done it, right? They've always looked to hire someone cheap to do a grunt job. I've done them, right? I recommend everyone does 1 or 2 jobs like that. But I think for me, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I know that there's a huge number of entrepreneurs that are dyslexic or ADHD or some form of neurodivergentness as a whole, and I think that that's part of the way we think, perhaps. I think that's part of the way that how we problem solve. I mean, one of the I guess the silver linings to dyslexia is being able to problem solve. And I drive my partner mad because I constantly have all these other ideas, but for me, I'm constantly trying to fix problems about, there's this cash flow problem, or I'm planning to do this, I'm trying to develop and change. I mean, you've seen, I hate saying it because like turbulent times in the economy, right? You could say it's anything's happening, geopolitics, anything's happening in the economy. But have you seen me develop a level of resilience through the nearly 10 years that I've run the company? Like, as it got stronger as I grew?
I think so, because I mean, you couldn't have recovered from, in our case, the Novichok situation. Then we have COVID. Then we have the situation of the instability in the economy, and now dominated particularly by Donald Trump, Mary mentioned, which have all ripple effects on businesses. And I think if you hadn't been determined to overcome every single issue that came along, you wouldn't still be running the business. You've had to think differently, diversify. But if you think about the people who have got these SEN or dyslexic issues, Richard Branson's one, he runs his own business, and obviously Jamie Oliver, who we've mentioned earlier. Many of these people do work for themselves because they know how to work well for themselves, and it's probably harder to work for a system.
Also, that it's like getting a square peg in a round hole. I don't think we are designed that way as dyslexic, as neurodivergent. What advice would you give to other parents who are maybe seeing, I'll say, signs, concerns about in their children that they're maybe they are neurodivergent, maybe they're not neurodivergent, they're not sure? What advice would you give to those people?
Well, it all comes down to the education system itself. Dare I mention politics and say, while the Tories were in power, they cut an awful lot of support for the special education side, and therefore any parent who was having to really fight for their child then, or any guardian, I would say that would be a really tough time. Under Tony Blair, which were again much further back, was a very good time because he was putting so many, a lot of money into the resources. But what I would say out with that, if depending on the area you live in, there is such a thing as a parent partnership, the reason for them are, if anybody does have concerns that they may think their child has got other issues, whatever that may be, it could be attention deficit disorder, it could be a multitude of things, they are your first port to go to. They are the first people to make contact with, as long as they still exist in the area that you're in. And you can talk to them with no money involved, just indirectly saying, look, I'm a bit concerned about my child with their education at the moment. I'm not sure if there's something that I need to get support with. But they will talk you through all of the different things you need to do and how you do need to keep up on the system and constantly keep abreast of everything. Even in tougher times, I mean, right now, this government is in theory going to put more money in the SEN side. He said he wants most teachers to understand it, which is huge. And if that's the case, then as a parent, go to the parent partnership, go to the school. Often the TA, if they still have them, are very much easier to approach than the teacher, who's obviously got a lot more responsibility, and or the head of the school. But if need to be, and if you're very determined, you go all the way right up to the top and you do what you can without annoying them enough to put them off. But you need to be very determined, whether there was support financially, because during the time when you were in school, there was that support, and Tony Blair put a lot of money into education, including that side. But even then, I had to really pursue it and be very strong about it, and very determined and not give up. So you need to do your best, and not everybody has that ability. So that's why I would suggest you go to the parent partnership if they still do exist, because they are the first port of call to have an informal discussion with them about these things.
Do you think, I mean, you are wiser, perhaps you could say, than me, for obvious reasons. I mean, what advice potentially would you give to someone who's my age now with the life experience you have?
In what respect? To mean to do with...
To them anyway, like maybe they're on the fence about, do I start a business? Do I take the risk? Do I take the job? Do I go and move to America? Do I go and take the opportunity? Do I go and travel? Like, wherever it is that they're on the fence about.
Do you mean particularly with the issues of what you're talking about, or
to a
just
dyslexic
generally?
or a non-dyslexic, or in general? I mean, like, to rephrase it in a question, like, what advice would you give to maybe your younger self if you could tell yourself at 20, 30? What the advice that you've gained across the years that you've got now that you could impart onto the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old you, the 40-year-old you?
Well, for myself, obviously, I did everything differently in a sense to most people anyway. I did things later in life, including my education later in life. But for yourself, I think with you being involved in running a business, you can do that anywhere. And now, particularly, as you said, following COVID, where a lot of people work from home more than they used to, then you're really in an ideal position to evolve and develop that running your business. I don't think there'll be anything.
Do you think
new.
young people are less likely to regret stuff that they maybe won't do? Like, I've always been of the view personally that actually, like with the business, for example, with me, I took the leap because actually it was a very safe leap for me to, like, worst case scenario, I take the leap, it all goes to shit. Okay, well, I'm still going to have a house to live in, and I have to eat my pride and go get a job. Oh no! Do you think that's why people don't, like, would you say people should take the risk when they're younger?
I think certainly it's better
Because it's easier?
It's better to do it when you don't have extra responsibilities. I would say that with very case, definitely. Because if you have responsibility of absolutely having to be able to pay off your mortgage, or you have a family who also give a lot of financial input to, I think you're going to be in a more risky position. I think because you're at this stage where neither of those things are relevant at this point, I think it's therefore easier for you to do all of those stepping stones and jumping from those positions. And when you first started, you were working from home, and it was very different then as again. So I think it's far easier than if you were in a much more responsible situation later on in life. So I wouldn't think it was any way to feel regretful. I think it's the best thing, especially with somebody like yourself, to go that route, definitely.
So anything else you want to mention?
Oh, just to say that, considering everything, considering all of the background and, perhaps the lack of a real male role model, I think you've done exceptionally well in every sense to do with your business and about your own self-worth beyond all of that.
Well, thank you for all you do. Thank you for, I guess, installing the right values into me from a young age and continuing to allow me to have those. And if you took some value from this conversation and you just focusing on one platform, is it that you can reduce overwhelm for your client? Do you think it's a level of, like, we sometimes overthink what's valuable, we overprocess, we overthink, oh, what about this post? Maybe this isn't valuable.
If you're trying to strive for the perfect post, it's then going to become a bit of a time drain and it's become extra stress.
How do you, is it just like relying on motivation?
Yeah, I mean, if I don't get it done, nobody else is going to get it done. That's a pretty strong motivation.
Sometimes it's not worth the headache. A lot of people were saying AI is going to take our jobs.
People will still buy from people. People will still want to learn from people.
I think for me, the people who are going to stand apart are the ones who are going to use it to accelerate what they're doing and not replace them.
Believe in yourself more.
Thank you for your time, Dan.
Thank you.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to a brand new episode. Today we're going to be talking to Dan, who's a social media consultant. And so Dan, just before we start, I mean, do you do just management? Do you help people with content? Like, let's just paint that picture for people who are maybe interested.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on this afternoon. Well, I am a social media trainer and social media manager, originally from Devon, now based in Bournemouth. And I work with service-based business owners, so local business owners that need more local clients. So the service is basically helping business owners. So that's through social media training, one-to-one, or maybe in a group setting to help them do it better for themselves. More specifically, that could be help with Facebook, advertising training, the basics of Instagram, or maybe improving their LinkedIn profile as well. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is more for the established businesses that have been in business for some time that need a presence because they just don't have, they've already got the customers, they're already really busy. And I help save them time by doing the social media management for them. So, for example, doing LinkedIn posts on a weekly basis, sort of like on a monthly retainer, coming up with different ideas for content for them through that as well, and just giving them a fresh start to social media, really.
What do you think people either get wrong in marketing right now, or like what are the missed opportunities, would you say, as a whole, in marketing at the moment, either specifically on social media or actually wider spread in more traditional marketing space, would you say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my bread and butter is the social media marketing side of things. And I think the big thing for me at the moment, and this has been the case for the last sort of 9 years of doing this, is that there's so much noise out there and so much overwhelm for business owners that it can be a real struggle. And I'm not talking about the people that have got big teams or in-house marketing departments. I'm talking about the people running businesses on their own. They've got a solid business and they've got something that people want, but they're frustrated because they don't know what to do in terms of social, and they have so much conflicting bits of advice from people out there, and maybe they watch some videos on YouTube and that advice isn't really tailored to their business. Maybe it's more for creators or influencers, for example, and they get lost in all this noise. And rather than just really nailing and focusing on one platform that could really help their business grow, they then spread themselves too thinly, and they're trying to do a bit of this, they're trying to do a bit of that because they've heard their friends say they need to be doing this, they need to be doing that, when ultimately, they've got a business to run. They haven't got all the time to do that. So that is what a lot of the service has been over the last 9 years, is working with those people that maybe haven't grown up with social media. And that's truly my passion, to sort of empower them to use it for their businesses. And sometimes, they're a little bit nervous, they've got technophobia, and they're scared to. And I think you said about missed opportunities. I think when you take a step back and look at things, like let's rewind the clock, maybe I'm thinking about times here, 20 years ago, maybe. I think I'm looking at, maybe a little bit more, but you've got a chance to be in front of a camera and speak to your audience all across the world, or all across the country, or whatever the context may be. And that's not an opportunity you had all that time ago. And this is, obviously the way we are now with smartphones and social media. We're so used to it, so embedded into our day-to-day culture, that it's quite interesting to just take a little bit of a step back and realize the opportunity you've got there to build that emotional connection with people that are following you as well. And I've seen it time and time again. I'm talking about like supplement shops and fitness shops back in Torbay, just doing simple videos, and that's just a great way to get yourself out there, get people to know, like, and trust you, really.
You mentioned that you mainly focus on one platform, right? And I think that's a misconception sometimes, because I think people, when they work with me or when we work with you, etc., maybe we look at, like, let's dominate across all of the platforms because we have a larger reach, we can reuse our content, etc. But I guess on the other side of that, what would you say is the pro to just focusing on one platform? Is it that you can reduce overwhelm for your client, perhaps? Is it kind of one of those things that some people say, like, you start on one, then you build to two, then you build to three? Are you, because the counter argument would be, like, are we putting all of our eggs in one basket, right? And are we concerned, like, let's for example, if you're business to business, which a lot of my audience is, okay, then you should just solely focus on creating LinkedIn content, right? I mean, is that the case, would you say?
I think it's different for each business owner in terms of where they're at in their journey. So if you're starting out, I think, like you said, it's good, as we both agree on, it's good to focus on one platform and then you can move on to another. It just depends the resource that you've got, the budget that you've got, time that you've got as well. So if you really, like you mentioned, obviously the example of business owners, really focused on LinkedIn, focused on the content, you've got a strategy for direct messaging, you're not just spray and pray, hoping for the best, you've got time, and you can build a tailored, solid audience of people that actually need your service. Then it just gives you that clear focus. And some people have got a better aptitude or sort of natural flair for it anyway, really. So maybe using LinkedIn and maybe Facebook, and in some cases, with LinkedIn and using the Facebook personal profile in professional mode, like a lot of people do, you can then repurpose some content as well, because some of that content can be suitable for both, but each platform has its own quirks. So I think, yes, if you're starting out, then starting on one platform and really focusing on getting that right, getting the right audience, getting the right content, not overcomplicating things. That's a big thing, really. So yeah.
I think there's a question on volume. Like, that was gonna be my next question in respect to, like, there is a nature to social media where you have to do a level of volume, especially at the start, to be able to gain enough data to understand what works and what people resonate with and what people really enjoy. But, personally, just for the audience's sake, and maybe your case as well, I've been very fortunate where my new marketing strategy of saying yes and, so this is a very volume dominated approach, because value is subjective, so I always try to add value in content, of course, but for me, I've been a very, very focused on daily output as the metric, and then overall arching numbers in regards to views, watch times, growth, etc., for that window of time across a month, for example. And I think if I'll put on the screen if I get it wrong, but I think it's around 200k at the moment per month that we're hitting across 5 platforms. Of course, that will change by the time this comes out, but the time of recording, it's around there. And I think when I talk about those big numbers, I think people find them very intimidating, and they can find that maybe it is because of, like, the volume, or it's because, like, I'm very seasoned in knowing how to create content in volume but also high value. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe looking at that approach, firstly, would you agree with that approach, number one? Number two, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe looking at what I'm doing and seeing success in, and maybe wants to emulate it as a whole, from a volume perspective, from a distribution perspective, and I guess in some ways, how do we check in with, is that in line with making our boat go faster, but also are we overwhelming ourselves as a creator?
Yeah, sure. I think at the end of the day, like you said, volume is important. That's certainly what I'm focusing on, and how we connected through the Facebook personal profile that I've switched into professional mode, like most people do, because my audience is getting bigger and bigger. I'm just keeping it simple. getting people into a Facebook group, and it just becomes a numbers game, really, essentially. But having said that, like, obviously this opportunity came up a few weeks ago to speak to you. I've had other opportunities have come up as well from just having those sheer numbers on, Facebook professional profile is my biggest audience, if you like. So there's a lot of scope for that, really. And
do you think it's a level of like we as in the royal we, as in everyone maybe listening or us, we sometimes overthink what's valuable, we overprocess, we overthink, oh, what about this post, right? What about this? Oh, maybe this isn't valuable. Because when I kind of, it's not that I'm not having a threshold of what's worthy, but I'm letting the audience tell me what's valuable in regards to their views, in regards to their likes, in regards to their numbers, in regards to their comments, etc. Do you think that's like one of the things that people need to get into the habit of doing? Because I think sometimes we get so close to perfectionism that we don't actually execute on all the ideas that we maybe have as business owners for great marketing or great social media.
yeah, I mean, working like one-to-one with a lot of clients, talking service-based business owners, and it sometimes it's a case of getting over yourself and just posting things. Sometimes things will flop, sometimes things will take off in terms of your post, and you'll be surprised by it, really. And you can only learn by experimenting as well, really. And in terms of business, I'm guilty sometimes of, in my early stages, of overthinking things and not executing, whereas actually if you execute, then you learn more as you go along. And I think that, there's no such, I think if you're trying to strive for the perfect post, and I'm not talking so much from a creator perspective, or I'm talking more from a business owner perspective, looking to, generate more local clients, for example, that it's then going to become a bit of a time drain, and it's become extra stress, rather than, and this is the importance of having like your content pillars in place, so you know what you're posting about, and you're just keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be anything earth shattering. You've got your content pillars in place, you know what your themes are, you know what your topics are, you can brainstorm your ideas, and you can have a bit of fun with it. And it's just always key, it's why I'm so passionate about content marketing. It's always just so key to have your audience in mind. I think, are you speaking directly to your audience? Are you just trying to speak to everybody, or speak quite broadly, and then missing the mark with everyone, really?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, I think, like, especially when we start out, we maybe worry about, as I say, like getting into that. What if people don't like the post, or what if like people don't like me, or etc. And we lean into that kind of like, oh, I'm gonna sound stupid on camera, or like, oh my god, I'm talking on my phone, what a weirdo, that kind of thing. I mean, it's a similar feeling to, I think, when we start networking, and I did want to touch on it a little bit with networking. I mean, personally, I've stepped away from networking, like the traditional sense of going to a room, about a year and a half ago. But the reason for that is, like, for me, like, it's just a scale thing, right? I'm at a stage where I'm very fortunate, where I've got a good number of clients, and whenever I do my marketing, I need it to be efficient and also scalable. So, and there could be arguments, and there is arguments, I'm sure, to say, well, actually, no, that's the time when you should be doubled down onto networking and etc. and etc. But for those people who are maybe starting out and really focusing on like maybe they're in the first year, right? What would you say like they should do if they're nervous about being on camera, they're nervous about going to a networking event, or they're nervous about speaking in front of a room, or those I think pillars of any business to build, right? Because I think when I talk about networking now, it's from the context of I'm nearly a 10-year-old business, and in my first 5 years I heavily networked. So I'm leaning on that network now. It's not that it's not valuable. It's kind of the season I was in business for me personally. I mean, just to reiterate the question, I mean, how did you personally, when you started networking, like tackle those fears and those challenges and those concerns around, like, oh my god, I've got to talk to people who I don't know. Oh my god, I've got to potentially like introduce myself, like in a network in 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing it back in 2015, and I wasn't actually, my business started in 2016, but I started writing a blog about social media, how it impacts businesses in the Torbay area. And they had Torbay hour meetings in the local area, and there was, guys that were running marketing agencies that were helping people with social media. So I thought, well, that would be, I just did a Google search and then found it, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool, because it's quite a small town, so go along to that and see what happens. And I guess, I'm quite at ease speaking to people that I don't know. I quite enjoy it. But
sorry to cut you off, but do you think that comes from the experience you've had of nearly doing it for a decade now?
yeah, I think, from like going to university 20 years ago now or whatever, and getting used to that situation of meeting people, and it's still nerve-wracking, particularly like when you introduce yourself on network. And even I did networking this morning online, you still get that little bit of like, oh, and I think in terms of guidance, I think it's just everyone's in the same boat. That's a good way to look at it. And it gives you that, it's character building, and it gives you that extra energy and that motivation. So I went to a networking event in Southbourne here locally in Bournemouth last week. It was last Wednesday morning about 8:30, and it was just a really nice positive start to the day. And particularly if you're working on your business on your own and you're on a laptop, you're on a PC, on your phone, it's just good to get that real connection as well. And it also holds you to account, so that you have to keep your standards high as well, and you're out there sort of like in the real world and learning from people and picking up little bits of advice, little sort of bits of information as well. So and I get that, for some people it can be really overwhelming to go to sort of physical networking. So maybe start with like a smaller group, or something a bit more informal, or online networking as well, just to sort of dip your feet in the water, so to speak, and then learn as you go along.
I remember when I was like really getting into networking, I don't think I ever actually had it, but I know that I know there was a conversation about maybe don't specifically look at the room very tactically, right? So don't look at the room and go, oh, I work with this characteristic of person, so the only people I'm going to talk to is those people. I mean, have you found in your experience that actually the people who give you the most referrals, because that's why we go to networking, right, is to work through the room rather than work directly in the room? Do you find the people who maybe you get the most work from, or potentially get the most referrals from, or goodwill from, aren't who you would necessarily expect?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was an example last October when there was a Bournemouth Business Festival locally. Quite a big event, to be fair, and went along to that, did speed networking. And this is the thing, that day I was going to Alicante, and I had the option of basically getting my flight earlier in the day or later in the day. So I could have started my holiday earlier, basically, but I decided to go. I said, I've got to go to this event. I can't miss it. I went to the event, made some connections. There was no direct interest in my services on that day, but there were a couple of interesting people I met in speed networking. So I followed up with them. And then, one of them was involved with lead generation, but I wasn't going into that call expecting, oh, she's going to have some clients refer to me. It was just like, we had a really nice conversation. She was local. Let's just jump on a Zoom call for 20 minutes or so and just carry that conversation on. And sort of this is the thing, when you're not attached like that, I just find that opportunities present themselves. Whereas I was probably guilty of this at the start of, oh, who should I speak to get this? Rather than just going in, being open, this is what I do, this is who I help, what about yourself? And, you sort of go in, sort of a bit of a cliche, but it's very true that you go there to build relationships. And obviously the purpose of all relationships, it's not, take. Obviously you go to a relationship to give. So that's just the attitude that I have to it now, really. And it often is the case that when you're least expecting it, you have a conversation with someone, you think, oh, this person is not necessarily going to need my services, but they, you never know who they know. And yeah, so it's all about circulating.
I mean, obviously we both work very strongly online, right? And I think, would it be fair to say we're maybe chronically online, right? As in, like, there's not, speaking personally anyway, there's not a day where I'm not connected or not having some level of internet conversation related to something related to work, right? For example, whether that's through my phone or computer or a podcast or whatever. So even when I do meet people in person, it's normally about what we're doing online. And I guess, the question that I was going to kind of lead on to that was like, at what point, and this is maybe a personal question, so maybe answer it from your perspective, because I think it will be different for everyone. when do you try and detox? Like, and then how do you go about doing that from a digital detox perspective? Because it's not something I did for the last couple of years, but now I'm like chronically online as much. I'm actually trying to like really focus on having maybe a couple of windows a day, like maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 2 hours of just not being connected to the internet. Like mentally, just like obviously my phone is still connected, so right, stuff can happen, but like I'm not actually. Oh, my phone's out of the way, my computer's out of the way. I'm not looking at it, thinking about it. You know, how did you do that? And if so, like how did you build that habit?
Well, like yourself, I just became very aware of it a couple of years ago that my whole world was like online, essentially, and it just started to feel really unhealthy. And I think it's a problem that a lot of people encounter and maybe people aren't aware of. So you probably saw, I did a post recently about this July digital detox challenge. It came up, obviously on a Facebook ad, ironically, but fair enough. And I thought, well, let's give this a go. And it's things that I've been putting into practice over the last few years, really. So using the Minimalist app on my phone, I pay a fee for that each year, and that helps make my phone become more of a tool, which essentially it is, and look a bit more boring. So it's not got all those shortcuts and visual cues to sort of entice me in. And yeah, I mean, for example, like last night, met my friend, went to the beach, very lucky to sort of live near to the beach. And I just look at that circumstance and it's like, I don't need to be on my phone. Obviously, if a family member calls, the phone is still there. If it's something urgent, somebody will call. And that time is precious because it just gives you that time away. But I think a lot of this comes to building healthier habits. I think people just aren't aware a lot of times that they're doing it they're doing it subconsciously, really, where let's say two friends are at a bar watching the football, one pops off to the bar, the other one's straight on their phone. The friend's only going to be gone for a couple of minutes, but it's just an instinctive all waiting at the bus or whatever. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world, but the thing with it is, obviously we're business owners, we're busy people, we got a lot to process and we got a lot of things we got to think about, and that creativity can come through silence. And certainly for me, like lunch times, dinner times, that's just a time where I'm not on the phone. And I'm not like anyone, I'm no saint or perfect. There might be a time where there's something on YouTube and maybe I'm just listening to it and in the background, but 8 times out of 10, just make that time to not be on it, because it's something I'm very passionate about, because it's just not healthy. And I know it gives us the opportunity to connect with people, like I said, all across the world at all times. It gives us a chance and more opportunities. But at the same point, you've got to balance that out with you. Well, you need the energy for the next day. If I was on my phone a lot last night, there's no real downtime. So I would highly recommend people to look at this digital detox challenge and just take a step back, because you'll be much better for it.
I think that's an important point. And I would tackle it from a perspective of like, how present are you in the moment, right? And how present are you with your parent? How present are you with your partner? How present are you with that friend? How present are you with yourself, right? And I think that sometimes what we don't look at, right, is sometimes actually, like, as busy people, especially as you get older, you get into a relationship, you want to continue to build your relationship, of course, with your parents, etc., and then maybe you have a friendship circle, you want to be social and so on. We spend all this time, or we spend working, or we spend doing a task or whatever, we spend all this time out, and we don't, I think, well, on average, unless you make a habit of it, to actually spend the time looking in and working on ourselves and, etc. And for me, something that I've always had is that's why I do fitness, because it forces me into this point of view where there is no other distractions. Maybe I've got music on, or maybe I'm listening to a podcast or whatever, but from the crux, sometimes I'll just like go on the run, go for the workout, I won't put headphones in, I'm just there with my thoughts, and that's deliberate, because sometimes I'll need to process things, or like I need to just check in with myself and see. But I think it does open up, like, you need to be present. I think you can actually show up better for those other people I was alluding to, if you are willing to allocate that time to have the, alone time with yourself, or etc. And sometimes for some people that can be really hard, but something that I did want to ask you about is, obviously we both work online, we both work on social media, and these platforms are designed to hook our attention in, right, and for us to consume content. And if you're doing content correctly, you'll know how this works with hooks and call to actions and value adds and, you know, having text on screen and all these like tricks psychologically. How do you, as a social media manager or social media consultant, however you want to think about it, like, go on social media to do a task, whether that's posting or whether that's like market research or equivalent, when you're like consuming that, not be drawn into that content, especially on TikTok, for example?
Yeah, it's super hard. I mean, particularly with Instagram as well, you know, and how the algorithms work. Like it's difficult because you can get sucked into a vortex. But, you know, Facebook, personal profile, professional mode that I mentioned before, it's hard, and sometimes it's literally just like you just have to snap out of it. And you know, also from a digital wellness point of view as well, looking at my feed and once again seeing, is this actually helping my state of mind? You know, I use, like for clients, I use Buffer, for example, so that's like a nice clean environment. So I'm there for the purpose of, I've got Canva open, scheduling posts, and there's no distractions, and that's great. And obviously Meta Business Suite as well for other clients, that's useful, so that I'm just in that content management mode rather than that. But you know, like you said about market research or whatever it may be, you know, I might have had a conversation with someone on LinkedIn, think, oh, I need to follow up with them, and then, you know, posts come along, and
LinkedIn's got you now.
Yeah, it's got me. So you just get sucked. So it is hard because as much as you can have all these tools, you know, we're only human, and obviously, you know, we both know how it works. So it's just a case of being aware. I know I haven't really got like a more refined answer than that, but it's just a case of putting yourself back into the room, as they say.
I think to an extent how I look at it anyway is I could potentially see it as a reward engine. Like, I don't actually, to be honest, I don't really consume on TikTok or socials anymore. Not really. Like, I'm a big YouTube watcher, sure, but that's when I'm trying to actually do research or trying to learn or equivalent, right? But like, outside of that, I don't really consume content, and that's just because I've trained my mind not to go down that rabbit hole. But when I did, I would always do it in a respective, like, if you do X task, then you can spend 20 minutes on TikTok. Like, completely cool, completely fair, scroll for your heart's content, you know? And I think, I mean, to an extent, that kind of, in some ways, that leans into my next question, which is going to be around, like, what lessons have you learned from, like, growing a business, or what lessons have you learned as a whole, like, in your business journey? But I think for me, just before I pass back to you, I think using that reward pathway and using that, like, you do a thing, then you get a reward, I think is really key, because it allows you to still have the things you enjoy, but it also allows you to not feel then guilty about enjoying those things because you've tied it to an outcome, right? So, I need to get this work done for a client. Okay, cool. When the work is done for a client, I can then do the thing I enjoy. But just to reiterate, what lessons specifically have you learned? What specific lessons have you kind of taken from? So maybe like the last 5 years, perhaps, or maybe the last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's lots of lessons. I mean, a big thing for me has been personal development, knowing that, you know, I am my business, I run my business, and the more I invest in myself, the more I'll get back from my business because I'm a stronger person. And I definitely think, particularly over the last, I'd say like 2 years, you know, I've been much more focused on tapping into like the local business community as well, and not feeling so alone, and joining the online networking groups like Larten Live, Oni, Entrepreneur Circle. You can just be with people in the same boat as well, and I really appreciate, you know, those opportunities to connect with people, and because it's very easy to just sort of be in that solo mode and kind of you know, isolated in that sense. So that's a big thing. And I think as well, you know, kind of not being afraid to fail as well and learning from failures. You know, that's obviously a big pressure, but certainly you know, the more you fail, the more you learn. That's one of the big things I've learned as well, and not also, I think it's probably a thing that a lot of people can relate with, not being your harshest critic, as much as I am a lot of times my own harshest critic, because I want to keep doing better and everything. Giving yourself some slack as well.
I think there's a difference to, like, when you, so for example, every single client shoot I've ever had, I've always done a debrief afterwards. And the point of that debrief isn't for me to beat myself up on what I didn't do well. It's to say, sick, you did it. Client seems to be happy. Things seem to be going well. Cool. But what if we could make it better? Right? And I think for me, those debriefs allow me to make those 1% improvements so that by the end of the year, I'm 37 times better at my craft than I was a year ago. And it kind of, to an extent, leans into maybe what you touched on a little bit about the networking thing and like building those longer term connections. But what role would you say that community, it's kind of a buzzword now, but like community as a whole, or having a community of business owners around you, whether that's digitally interacting with content and you're both kind of both interacting with content, or physically at a networking group, or maybe like check-in circles, or etc., however you want to do it, or accountability partners, so on, so on. There's loads of ways to do it. What role would you say those community element actually has for your business, but in general as a business owner?
I mean, one of my values, is tied in with community as well, because I've been involved with lots of communities in the past. I was involved with a YouTube channel, Elite FPL. That was a big part of that channel was, and still is, being part of a community, a sort of online worldwide community that are passionate about fantasy football. And then, being part of these networking groups like Latte Live that I mentioned before, Oni, Entrepreneur Circle, and the local business events as well. I'm a Use Patch, which is a local workspace in Bournemouth. So once again, without wanting to spout out another cliche, you're not on the journey on your own, and you've got other people to bounce ideas off. You can learn different things from different people, even from their challenges, which they might have a different business to you, but then you can relate it back to your own business as well. And it's definitely the thing of keeping you to account and helping you kind of keep on progress as well with your peers, if you like, really, so that you're not kind of slacking behind as well. And I think as well, mentioned it before, like when you asked about people that are new to networking, certainly confidence building. When I, once again, a few years ago, started to go to more local events in Bournemouth because I wanted to get more known in the local area. I was quite nervous rocking up to these big events, and that has lessened, and I've actually started to embrace and look forward to it as time has gone on. So it's been quite, confidence building as well.
I think sometimes when we look at business owners, or we look at maybe someone's social media, it's very highlight orientated, so that can naturally like build your confidence, but also it can go the other way. I think sometimes where people often wonder or often worry about like, what if they're not doing well, right? And I think something that I'm very proud of is actually whenever things aren't doing well, I've taken 100% accountability for that, but also number two, I've also like be willing to be open and share it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm potentially, from people who watch my content consistently, they tell me like, you're a human, right? So like, it's not like this, like, oh, things are going super well and etc. And I hope it makes me perceived, or makes me believe that I'm more humble than maybe others. But it kind of does link into my next question, which was going to be around, obviously business doesn't always go well for whatever reason. I mean, do you have a specific either set of challenges or like a larger set of challenges that you're willing to share, that also like how you then overcame those challenges, more importantly? Because I think sometimes it's important for us to share a level of vulnerability there, but also share to the point where like actually it can be a tool to show like, no, don't go down there because there's a bear there, for example, right? I mean, have you had any challenges like that you're willing to share and how you then fix them?
Yeah, massively. I mean, it's constantly every day's a school day, as they say, and you're constantly learning. So, I mean, there've been challenges before where I've started out just working with solopreneurs, working just with a couple of businesses, and then end up working with lots of businesses all at once, and having to put all the sort of foundations in place to do that. And not always getting it right, and making things that I regret, things that I wish I'd done differently. But making that transition hasn't always been easy. I'm talking about sort of organization and things like that, and running things smoothly. And you don't know what you know till you know it, as they say. So once you go from, I had a period where I was just, running a few social media accounts, doing some training here and there, to then running social media training for big groups, 20, 30 people every day, and just feeling overwhelmed at the time, really. And because I didn't have the infrastructure in place in terms of like the admin, all the tech side, really. And you are learning the hard way, really. But I think once you move past that and invest in your business more, like invested in business mentorship and training, and then once you've had that experience and things haven't necessarily gone always how you'd like them to go, and then you do training and it goes really well, you get really good feedback, and you think, oh, actually, I've learned from that experience. I now moved on. I'm a stronger person for it, and you sort of feel confident in yourself again.
I think it's like there is probably a psychological term, something on the lines of the survivor. It's not survivor bias. There's something else there, but it's basically the crux of it is things happened to me. I survived it, so it gave then a knock-on effect to my confidence, because I know I can survive that again if it was to happen again. And I think for me, as someone who's been, could say in some ways turbulent, had business turbulence, etc., and I'm sure everyone has within reason, I think it's one of those things where to an extent you have to lean into what you knew worked previously, but also be trusting in the self that you'll figure it out. And sometimes there's challenges in business, sometimes there's challenges with retainer clients, there's challenges with project clients, there's challenges as a whole. And I think it's about how you approach when things aren't going as well as you would like them to, is what really will stand you apart, firstly from your client perception point of view, but also from a marketing point of view. And I think it comes from you. And I think especially is whether you have a team or whether you're the leader or whether it's just you plus freelancers or just you, I think it has to, regardless, the inner work has to come from you. I mean, my next question was going to be around how do you balance, or how do you lean into motivation? Are you strong in discipline in respect to when times are hard and you know that the thing you have to do is show up and do the work? How do you sort of push through that? Is it just relying on motivation, or is it just solely down to, because my view has always been it's solely just down to, if you got to get shit done, you just got to push through it with the self-care and understanding that you can give yourself a time when you fix the problem, but there is a level of just you have to be disciplined to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't get it done, nobody else is going to get it done. So I think, and that's a pretty strong motivation, really. I think when the chips are down, a lot of time that's when I come out fighting in a way, really. And it's just, it's not always easy. But I think once again, when you run your own business, you're reliant on yourself, and that is a test of your character anyway, and it helps you grow even more. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's always been easy, and that there haven't been times that I've hid, for example, when there's been opportunities or there's been network and I've maybe gone into my shell a little bit. But I think, and this, I don't know how to say this, but when you have an employed job, there probably are times where you're working and you sort of what you got to do, and then your neck isn't always on the line. Whereas when you're running your own business, you haven't necessarily got those safety nets in place. I'm not saying that having an employed job is not pressured at all, but
I think it's different, right? And I think even if you have a retainer, and even if you have a pot of money, and even if you've done the financial work and you've done the money management work and etc., you still, from your core, don't like losing a client, right? Personally, I don't. I never like saying goodbye to a client, or deciding to part ways with a client, or a client deciding that as well. And normally it's a mutual thing when that happens, right? But I think for me it comes down to, sometimes you've just you've added the value you can add, and as you do it more, you'll understand that it's just part of the process sometimes, especially if you're growing yourself, as your expectations or etc., there's only a certain line that you're willing to go, especially if your expectations are rising. But also it needs to work for both people. And sometimes regardless of the project or the client or the retainer or even the job, sometimes it's not worth the headache. And if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you've got the pot of money, you've done the financial resources, and you've done the financial work to be able to maybe step away and say, actually, no, I don't need to accept that anymore, then great. If you are not in that position, then like I would say work on that to get to that position. But also I think, and I was going to ask you about like what your plans are for maybe like the rest of the year, because we're filming this roughly around the middle of 25, which is weird to say because it just feels like we were in January, but it always seems to be the way. I mean, what do you want ideally, like either for you, or do you think like from a marketing point of view, do you think like is there going to be any like drastic shift, or like is there any opportunities that people who may be listening to this could take advantage of in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I I do the social media training and management I talked about, and that you touched upon like the community as well, shifting towards like a group membership, a community where I teach business owners in a community, and the community work together. So that's something I'm really excited about launching sort of towards the end of the summer. So there's going to be a networking opportunities within that, and different scope for working with like a group together rather than just working with single business owners in isolation, if you like. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, we've not really spoke about AI, but obviously that presents a lot of opportunity, well, massive opportunities for people that are looking to learn how to use it for their businesses as well. So there's scope for that. And yeah, I mean, talked about the digital well-being side of things as well. That seems to be something that I've seen come up in terms of courses or help for digital well-being as well. So there's different areas, and it's just seeing how viable those areas are and how much support people need, really.
You mentioned AI. I mean, where do you see it? Because for a long time, a lot of people were saying AI is going to take our jobs. Then it sort of became the person who's utilizing AI is likely going to take your job. Where do you sit on it?
Well, I mean, I think that at the moment, obviously, I use it as a sort of virtual AI assistant, and from like a content marketing perspective, it can give you so many ideas and so much support. But ultimately, still, I've still seen people doing this where their copy is clearly AI generated, and it loses the tone. So I think in terms of like from our perspective, people will still need us to help maybe teach them how to use it. And also, use it as prompts, use the machine's prompts as well to get, content and do it for them. So it's still an amazing tool, really. And yeah, I just think it's very interesting times in terms of the opportunities it presents for particularly content generation for those business owners that don't necessarily have like the tech skills to use editing software to put together, really amazing content as well. So yeah, it's exciting times, but I still taking a step back from that. People will still buy from people. People will still want to learn from people. It's just harnessing those opportunities to do that, really.
Yeah, the analogy that I started using is you need to, with AI, in the same way you would use a knife, you need to sharpen the knife before you use it. And I think the analogy I used that before is it's a tool to be used. You don't need a hammer for everything. You would sometimes use a screwdriver to put up shelves, for example. But I think for me, the people who are going to stand apart are the ones who are going to use it to accelerate what they're doing and not replace them. But I think I think at the moment, especially in corporate, there's a big push towards let's cut costs, and it's probably synergized with maybe the uncertainty, you could say, in the economy. I don't like mentioning it because, like, for me, it's like it's always been there. There's always been a level of uncertainty. There always will be something going on, and I think if you focus on that and you use that as an excuse, you'll never act and you'll never do the things you should be doing to grow your business to then be in a better position. But as a whole, I think there's a culture at the moment, especially in the corporate land or like the larger scale stuff, where people are maybe looking to cut headcounts, where they're like, actually, what can an AI agent do for me? So if you are a solo entrepreneur, maybe working with those businesses or in general yourself, you should be utilizing it, and you should be seeing how you can utilize it to make yourself more efficient and more valuable. And then what will end up happening, I think, is actually you'll find you'll get more of the economic reward of that value, in my view. And I think, for me, I think that's something which we're not quite there with yet. I think the system, the corporation, the how we outsource, etc., hasn't quite caught up, and we haven't. There's some businesses that are, but the majority, talking broadly, I don't think they figured that out yet. I think they will, given time, but I don't think we're quite there yet, in my view. I mean, for those who are maybe interested, where can people find you? Where's best to connect with you? You know, if they want to look at sort of see your training, they want to see maybe talk to you about running their socials, that kind of thing. Where's best to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, Daniel Ball on LinkedIn, to search me on there. Feel free to connect. Your social media consultant on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So those are the best places, really, particularly LinkedIn and Facebook are the best places to connect with me. So say looking for service-based business owners that are on their own, frustrated with social media, need help and support, and I'll be your personal trainer, if you like. You know, I'll give you that tough love and that support that you need, and I'll be there with you every step of the way. And hopefully that wasn't too corny, but would love to connect with more people.
Fantastic. And if you were going to wind the clock back 10 years, maybe 15 years, and you were talking to the Dan who was there, right? The person who maybe hadn't started a business yet, or was in the first couple of years of starting the business, depending on whether you're doing 10 or 15, what would you say to him?
Believe in yourself more.
Thank you for your time, Dan.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No, you're welcome. And if you did enjoy this piece and you would like to see more like it, make sure to leave me a comment on what you thought, and of course you can subscribe and etc. and all those lovely YouTube things as well. But thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me, and I'll see you very, very soon.